Lisa Marie Presley's name has always carried both fame and tragedy, but in the wake of her sudden death, shocking claims have emerged that suggest her story didn't end the way the world was told. As investigators, neighbors, and journalists uncover strange financial movements, missing files, and eerie surveillance footage, Lisa Marie's final days now look less like coincidence and more like the blueprint of a chilling mystery. Lisa Marie's sudden death sent shockwaves across the globe, leaving fans devastated and the media scrambling for answers. At first, it seemed like another tragic case of a celebrity gone too soon, but almost immediately, strange details began to surface. In the days leading up to her passing, Lisa Marie had been seen in public looking anxious, distracted, and burdened by something she couldn't quite shake off. Those who were close to her noted that her mood had shifted dramatically. She appeared restless, her movements jittery, and her eyes carried a look of deep unease, as if she were constantly aware of something lurking in the background. Neighbors later claimed they noticed unusual activity around her home at night. Cars that didn't belong to the neighborhood would park a few houses down, their engines idling for hours before vanishing without a trace. Others described shadows crossing her lawn at odd hours, movements so subtle that only someone watching closely would have noticed them. The days before her death became a timeline of unsettling events. A delivery driver reported that Lisa Marie seemed nervous when he brought a package to her door, constantly looking over her shoulder as though she expected someone to appear behind her. Another visitor recalled that she abruptly cut their meeting short, muttering something about being too tired, but leaving the impression that she wanted them gone quickly. Nothing about these accounts seemed alarming in isolation, but when pieced together, they suggested that she felt watched, perhaps even hunted. Her last public appearance added fuel to the mystery. Witnesses described her as pale and distracted, her usual charisma replaced by an almost haunted presence. She spoke briefly to reporters, but avoided eye contact and cut the interaction short. This strange demeanor stood in stark contrast to the confident woman her fans had always known. Those who later reviewed the footage noticed small but telling details: her hands fidgeting, her eyes darting nervously, her voice carrying an edge of unease. It was as though she was silently sending a message, a cry for help hidden in plain sight. When the news broke that she had died suddenly of cardiac arrest, the public was stunned but not entirely convinced by the explanation. Whispers quickly spread, rumors that she had been under some form of pressure, perhaps even receiving threats. While officials offered a medical reason, people couldn't ignore the strange coincidences that had surrounded her final days. Instead of quiet acceptance, her death opened the door to countless suspicions, sparking a storm of speculation that has never truly settled. The release of the autopsy report was supposed to provide closure, but instead, it only deepened the mystery surrounding Lisa Marie's passing. The official statement pointed toward cardiac arrest, a condition not uncommon, yet private examiners who quietly reviewed the findings noticed inconsistencies. Certain details seemed to have been glossed over, such as minor traces of an unusual substance in her system that did not align with her medical history. Though not strong enough to prove poisoning, the presence of this substance raised serious questions about whether it was introduced deliberately or accidentally. Whispers spread among those close to the case that the official report might have been carefully worded to avoid drawing attention to these irregularities. Behind the scenes, investigators began digging into Lisa Marie's life, uncovering hints that she had been working on something significant before her death. Word leaked out that she had been writing a memoir that promised to reveal explosive details about her family, her struggles with fame, and her experiences with people who had tried to control or exploit her. Publishing insiders confirmed that she had been in advanced talks with a major company and that the book was being positioned as a groundbreaking release. This revelation transformed the way many saw her death. If she had been preparing to tell truths that others wanted kept hidden, could that have made her a target? Journalists began pulling on loose threads, tracing back through Lisa Marie's schedule in the weeks before her passing. They discovered that she had missed several important meetings without explanation, something uncharacteristic for her. One source even suggested that she had expressed fear about moving forward with the memoir, hinting that she might have been pressured to abandon it. Still, she pressed on, determined to finish what she had started. This decision now looked far more dangerous in hindsight. As speculation grew, the public began to divide. Some accepted the medical conclusion, believing it was a tragic but natural event. Others, however, could not ignore the timing. The idea that her death occurred just as she was preparing to share secrets with the world struck many as more than coincidence. The inconsistencies in the report, the presence of the unexplained substance, and her unshakable sense of fear all fed into a narrative of possible foul play. Rather than closing the case, the autopsy had opened the door to even darker suspicions, suggesting that Lisa Marie's passing may not have been as simple as officials wanted people to believe. As the investigation widened, attention naturally shifted toward the people who had surrounded Lisa Marie in her final months. What began as routine background checks soon uncovered unsettling details that hinted at a deeper conspiracy. Financial records showed irregular activity in her accounts, with large sums quietly transferred to offshore banks under names connected to individuals with dubious reputations. The movements were subtle, timed carefully to avoid detection, but investigators who traced the trail were alarmed by the patterns. These transactions suggested that someone with access to her finances had been operating in the shadows, possibly manipulating her assets for their own gain. It raised the disturbing possibility that money, not just secrecy, played a central role in her death. The mystery only deepened when surveillance footage from the night before her passing was quietly leaked to independent reporters. Though blurry and grainy, the video appeared to show a figure entering her property long after midnight. Strangely, none of the home's security alarms were triggered, suggesting either inside knowledge or tampering. The identity of the intruder was never confirmed, but their presence created a chilling question. What business did they have at her home in the hours before she was found dead? Officials brushed off the footage as inconclusive, but for many, it was undeniable proof that something sinister had unfolded behind closed doors. Adding to the tension was the discovery of a growing rift between Lisa Marie and certain people in her inner circle. Former employees hinted at heated disagreements over her financial management, while others described her as being more guarded and suspicious. In recent weeks, there were suggestions that she had begun limiting access to her personal life, refusing to take calls from individuals who once played central roles in her world. Whether these choices stemmed from paranoia or real threats, the timing made them impossible to ignore. Each clue added another layer to the puzzle, painting a picture of a woman entangled in secrets, surrounded by pressure, and perhaps even betrayed by those closest to her. The offshore accounts, the missing alarms, and the shadow caught on camera were pieces of evidence that refused to align neatly with the official narrative of natural causes. Instead, they hinted at orchestration, the possibility of a carefully disguised crime hidden beneath the surface of tragedy. For those watching the case unfold, it seemed increasingly unlikely that Lisa Marie's death was random or accidental. Something larger, darker, and meticulously planned was lurking just out of reach. As journalists pieced together Lisa Marie's final days, a haunting narrative began to take shape, one that suggested she had been under relentless pressure from every direction. Legal battles had already drained her energy, with disputes over her estate and lingering financial debts casting a long shadow over her future. At the same time, she was attempting to rebuild her personal life and reignite her career, determined to step out from the chaos that had defined so much of her past. Those closest to her revealed that she had recently spoken with unusual determination, claiming that she was on the verge of taking back control. But beneath that determination was an unmistakable sense of urgency, as though she was racing against time to accomplish something critical. The most troubling revelation came from her work on a memoir, which insiders confirmed was far more than just a personal story. Drafts of the manuscript hinted at bombshell claims that could tarnish reputations and expose long-buried secrets tied to some of the most influential figures in her life. Just days before her death, she was scheduled to meet with a publisher to finalize key details, a meeting that could have cemented the release of her story. But that meeting never took place. Instead, following her death, her computer files containing the manuscript mysteriously disappeared. Attempts to recover them through backups or cloud services failed, leaving no trace of the work she had poured herself into. To those investigating, it appeared as though the files had been deliberately wiped clean. Adding to the mystery, close contacts revealed that Lisa Marie had expressed growing fear over the safety of her personal information. She had reportedly mentioned being concerned about unauthorized access to her devices, and at one point, she even stopped using her primary phone for a short period. The sudden disappearance of her memoir only reinforced suspicions that someone had been monitoring her closely and waiting for the right opportunity to silence her voice. Her final attempts to reclaim control of her life now looked less like a comeback and more like a dangerous gamble. Each piece of missing information, each broken link in her timeline, created a chilling sense of intentional erasure. Instead of leaving behind a legacy on her own terms, it seemed that her most important story had been stolen from her at the moment it was needed most. The haunting question lingered: was Lisa Marie's death simply misfortune, or was it the result of someone making sure the truth never reached the light of day? The official record still insists that Lisa Marie's death was the result of natural causes, but the storm of suspicion refuses to settle. Each new detail uncovered adds weight to the belief that her passing was far more complicated than authorities admitted. The unexplained cars outside her home, the blurry figure caught on surveillance, the missing manuscript files, and the strange financial activity created a tapestry of unanswered questions that cannot be ignored. Together, they painted the outline of a story that felt deliberate rather than accidental. For those who followed the case closely, the idea of coincidence no longer seemed possible. What troubled many the most was the timing. Her death arrived at a critical turning point in her life, on the brink of a new project, potentially exposing powerful truths, and in the middle of unraveling financial dealings. For some, it seemed unthinkable that all of these elements converged purely by chance. If she had been silenced, then whoever was responsible had acted with precision, ensuring that her legacy was carefully reshaped into a narrative of tragedy rather than revelation. Those closest to her described how swiftly the story was packaged and presented to the public, with no room left for alternative explanations. The official version became the only version, despite the countless holes it contained. Over time, journalists and independent investigators continued to revisit the case, refusing to let it fade into obscurity. Some dug into the offshore accounts, uncovering more connections to figures who had every reason to keep their involvement hidden. Others focused on the missing memoir, treating it as the key to unlocking the entire mystery. The thought that her own words might have exposed the truth haunted both her supporters and those who may have feared her revelations. Without the manuscript, however, much of the case remained built on fragments, whispers, and speculation. The unanswered questions keep her story alive, fueling theories that range from betrayal by trusted confidants to calculated moves by those who stood to lose the most from her honesty. Whether the truth was buried with her or simply hidden away, the suspicion surrounding Lisa Marie's final days ensures that her death will never be viewed as ordinary. Instead, it remains a haunting enigma, part tragedy, part puzzle, drawing in those who cannot let go of the possibility that something darker lurks beneath the official story. The world may never know what truly happened, but the shadow of doubt ensures that Lisa Marie's name will forever be tied to one of the most unsettling mysteries of modern celebrity history.